How are you?
I'm good, man. Have yourself.
Doing really well, man. You're in
Yeah,
New York right now.
did I tell you I moved?
Yeah, you said New York, right?
Yeah. 6 months, 6 months. Jesus, 6 weeks in the Bronx now.
So is it like 6 weeks, kind of like Austin was just for a couple months, but ended up being
A
whatever, like a
bit
year and a
longer.
half or whatever it was as a world traveler?
Yeah, I signed a year-long lease, so I'll definitely be here for at least a year.
Okay,
But
good.
look, I just got back from Canada yesterday, so I'm still doing a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I guess you are, man.
And actually, I leave for Austin tomorrow. So
You really?
yeah.
What's your problem? Stay
But
somewhere.
actually, tomorrow, friends of mine just got married, and I'm dog sitting, so they can go on their honeymoon. So that's just
That's awesome. That's
hang out with the
awesome.
dogs. Yeah.
Well, it figures because I told you we're coming out to Austin for the for the reunion and fundraiser and stuff here at the
Right.
end of, or beginning of December.
Right.
So it figures that you're not there
Right.
anymore. Yeah, good timing on that. So that's great, man. Man, hey, everybody that's here joining us live. In case you can't tell, I know this guy, and I've gotten to. It is somebody I deeply respect. Somebody I've known for I think, man, I want to say 5, 6, 7 years now. Um, I'm not even really sure how long, to be honest.
I think it might be a little bit longer.
Might
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
And we've been lucky enough to bring him on here a few times. And he's a man that's spent over, well over 30 years studying human behavior and performance and relationships. And the guy is a ninja in many ways. And like other guys that we bring in, he's just a really good human. So
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
excited to have you here. So always interested to see where our conversations go because again, one of the most well-versed humans that I know in so many areas. But you and I were talking a little bit this morning, and I think we're gonna dive into what it means to move from kind of reactive to responsive, and taking a look at marriage in particular, and parenting and leadership. And you've worked with everybody from the elite performers to everyday couples, and framework that we were talking about kind of boils down to those pillars of what you said this morning, like conscious agreements, human optimization, and co-regulation.
Right. I mean, good memory. That's impressive.
So I actually listen to most people. So
Hopefully,
um,
your wife's included in that list.
but very much her more than anybody
That's,
else.
that's good.
I've
Good.
learned that at some point. We just celebrated 17 years married, 20 together this
Um,
past weekend, man. So
Happy
uh,
anniversary.
thanks, brother. Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely leaning on there. So that's kind of where I want to start, today, and we'll kind of see where we go with this. And we have brilliant humans, some of my favorite people on the planet that are joining us live. They'll
Nice.
come in for some Q&A too. But diving into a little bit of what you're talking about this morning, talking about how we operate on these unconscious agreements. And so,
Yeah.
right, and as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking like you must like talking about like culture, or whether it's family, or the spiritual background or geography, because I've done the same thing from like a generational standpoint, right? So what do you mean by that, kind of the unconscious agreements? What does that look like in practice? Or a better question might be like, what do people or couples get wrong maybe about communication before they even say a word? Let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah. No, thanks, Matt. And Coach Whitney, good to see you.
I'm sorry, I don't do a good job
That's okay.
introducing officially either.
It's
I
all
just
good.
go, here's Wit, let's make it awkward. I'll
Exactly.
put you up, and then I'm just going to start running my mouth.
I mean,
So
why not?
I'm sorry. Yeah. But
That's all good. I just want to formally say hello to her too.
no worries.
Um, so and I'm like you said, I've been doing this for 30 years, and my experience would suggest that most people are not conscious in term. When I say conscious, like they're unconscious, but they don't consciously come together in a coupledom and talk through how they're going to deal with life challenges, whether it's sexual challenges, familial challenges, money challenges, whatever the wide gamut of things people have to deal with. What my experience would suggest is most people come in there with pre-programmed from their family of origin, their unique culture and subcultures they might be operating in, their religion, their nationality, their ethnicity, all those forces have a play inside of you. It could be geographic regions, like that actually has a place to play inside of oneself too. And you just come into these habits inside the relationship. And what I like to do is like an archaeologist, like, kind of excavate those things. Like, let's look at these agreements that we kind of wink, nod to, which most of them are wink, nod, nods. Like, you're in a conversation with your girlfriend at the time or your boyfriend at the time, and he or she says something, and you just know, like, oh, that's a touchy subject. We don't talk about that. Or we don't talk about that way. Or like, there's these kind of unconscious rules that are guiding how we talk about certain things, or we don't talk about certain things. And a lot of relationships are kind of organized that way. So let's excavate those things. Let's look at them really clearly and say, hey, this might have served us early on, the first couple of weeks, months, years even. Are they serving us now? And
Yeah.
in most cases, they don't. And even if you excavate them, you look at them, and you agree to new agreements, like let's be conscious about this. Here's a healthy way of handling finances, for instance, or sexual issues, whatever it is. And I would suggest that that's not the final way of doing it necessarily. Maybe this new agreement might serve you now, but 5 years from now it might not. So you want to continually look at these agreements you come up with.
Yeah.
So I'll stop there, see if you have any questions on that, because there's a lot underneath
But
just
that's
the
all. I mean,
agreement.
there's so much in there, man, because you're talking. So one of our guys shot me a happy anniversary message, and he
Nice.
had kind of really a renewed. He's been married to his wife even longer than I've been married to mine, and they've got kind of this renewed relationship over the last couple of years as he's gone through all these things. And he says, man, he says one of the things that I've learned so much from Apogee is that there's three things going on in a relationship. There is the you, me, and the we, right? And all of those are different, which is very much what you're talking about here is, okay, you got the you, got the me, and then we also come together around the we, and that's where we're creating these agreements, right? You said a couple things right there, and some of the stuff that you were saying this morning in that the last voice message too. Sometimes you realize that the rules aren't serving you anymore, and so how are you showing people how to step into having those conversations anew? Like how do they know when it's time to have a new conscious agreement without blowing up, so they're not waiting until something blows up to be like, oh, I guess that's the trigger because we hate each other right now. um and there was another thing you said this morning that I'll tack on to this. You said it's not just about creating new agreements, it's about being capable of living into them.
Yeah, 100%. And there's three pillars. The first one is around conscious agreements, and I'll step into the second pillar in a moment, which allows one to actually actively engage the agreements. Because if I was talking to my partner and we came up with these wonderful agreements, this is how we're going to handle finances or sex or whatever the thing is, and I can't. Like, I get reactive and I get activated and I do my old patterns. Eventually she's going to stop trusting me. Like, hey, we came with this agreement. We agree we're going to have conversations this particular way. And it's going to be a safe place for us to talk about all kinds of things. And you're not going to get aggressive or withdraw. We all have our different ways of doing things, whatever the thing is. And let's just say we have that conversation and I withdraw because that's my MO. Like, oh, when I get upset, I withdraw. She's not going to trust me, or vice versa. Like, she withdraws or she gets aggressive. I'm not going to trust her. So it's not enough just to have conscious agreements. You actually have to have the capability of embodying those agreements. And I'll walk through that. But if it's cool with you, let me give you an example of a client
Yeah.
with the agreements thing. So I had a client that I was seeing actually quite a few years ago, and they're 31, 32. And they hooked up originally when they were 19 in college. And I think at the time, the boyfriend was very, very insecure. And most 19-year-old young men are not going to say to his girlfriend at the time, "Hey, I'm very insecure. I know it's not you because you're not doing any behaviors that would indicate to me that you're a problem, but I just read these situations a certain way. That's my perception based on my past, whatever it is." No one's going to say that. What they're going to do is they're going to see that their girlfriend talking to another guy, and he gets really jealous. And instead of just honestly talking about with her, because no 19-year-old young man is really going to do that, he just acts out. Her
Mhm.
lesson is, because she's, doesn't know how to handle this, she wants to be with him, is to stop talking to certain men because she doesn't want to upset him. But there's no conscious agreement. They're not talking through this thing. It's not like he's saying to her, hey, I'm really insecure. I'm working through my insecurities. While I'm working through them, would you mind not talking to other men in front of me? That's a whole different conversation than he withdraws when he sees her talking to other men. She learns a lesson. Oh, I better not talk to other men. So she shuts down relationships with men. And I don't mean like boyfriends. I just mean guy friends, and this in college. So when I saw them when they're 31 and 32, that came up in conversation. He completely forgot about it because he's no longer the 19-year-old insecure young man. He's a 32-year-old secure man. And she's been operating on that assumption from that relation early on in the relationship, but kind of unconsciously. She's like, oh my God, I didn't even know why I don't talk to men. Like, but she learned not to talk to men in front of him. And we excavated, we talked about it. He's like, I don't, wow, he's sorry that he wasn't more mature with the situation, talked about his concerns. And, she was unable to, for that at that particular time, to be mature enough to confront him about it, not in a violent way, but like, hey, the way you're acting is not healthy for us in this relationship. But they were when they're 32. So they both acknowledged the roles that they played and the agreements that they came up with 11 years earlier or so. And they're like, let's create a new rule, a new agreement. And the new agreement is like, hey, you can talk to whoever you want to. Obviously, we're a married couple. We're not polyamorous, polygamous. We're in a
Yeah, yeah.
monogamous relationship. So there are limitations what we can expect from each other in relating to from someone from the opposite sex. Cool. We're conscious about that. We agree to that. But doesn't mean you can't have friendships with someone from the opposite sex. And
Mhm.
that opened up a whole new world for her,
Wow.
a world that was shut down. He didn't even like think about it from 11 years earlier. So that's taking seemingly unconscious agreement, making it conscious, looking at it, saying, this doesn't serve us. Let's recreate a new rule, a new set of agreements around this stuff. They did a lot happier.
Man. Uh, um, Such an interesting. So as I'm listening to that, and all of us have, I think everybody on this call can go through, something within their own relationship, whether it was past, present, whatever, where something like that was, manifested.
Yeah.
I've been diving into, and thanks to Coach Witt's husband Kev too, I've been diving a lot into Adlerian psychology lately. Um, so I'm taking a look at this, going, how do I want to frame this? Do you find that it is more common when you're working with these couples that you are helping them construct conscious agreements for where they want to go? We are here now. We want to go here, and let's structure a conscious agreement. Or do you find that it's more common to go, hey, let us uh, excavate, as you're saying, these unconscious beliefs we already have, right? Do you have to do that first and kind of have the like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was doing that, or why I was doing? Do you have to have that in order to build that? Or can you just go, here's where we are, here's where we want to go, and let's build? Or has it got to be a little bit of both in your experience?
That's an excellent question. I love that question. And I'll say yes, and
Okay.
I think it can be really helpful to understand the past programming that led to a certain unconscious agreement that led to certain behaviors in the relationship. Doesn't preclude one from creating new ones, but it's very abstract and cognitive. If it's just like, let's create these new agreements, that sounds wonderful. But if you're still being driven by old beliefs,
Yeah.
it can make it that much more difficult to actually embody the new agreements. So I'd say
Yeah.
a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I'm not doing therapy, so I'm not like, let's
Yeah.
get spend weeks and months and years digging into the unconscious and working through all this stuff. I'm a coach. I mean, I'm trained as a therapist, but I'm doing coaching these days, not necessarily therapeutic work. So a little bit of digging is important, so you can be aware of your own. Like the way I say is, why you do what you do is important, but how you do it is just as important.
Mhm.
What's the thinking? What's the cognitive structures? What's the emotions? What's the breathing pattern? What's the posture? What's the muscle tone? I'm trained somatically, so I'm always thinking, like, how do people actually express themselves physically as
Mhm.
expressions of one's psychology? So like if you're in a conflict with your partner and you see the color changes in their face, their eyes, the eyes get tight, like collapsed, their breathing gets restricted, they hunch down or they get expanded, whatever the thing is, that tells you a lot about where they're at psychologically.
Yeah.
that is a lot of the unconscious reactivity that I want to help my clients become aware of, deconstruct, and become responsive, not reactive from the pre-programs from their youth and younger years. So yeah, just a long answer to your question. A little bit of both.
Oh, it's really good. It's really good. It's really good. And I even think of that from a parenting standpoint too, just that physiology that you mentioned there. And look, guys, so this is where, and so for those of you that are live with us too, I want you to understand this is when I'm saying like Michael is somebody we could sit here and have a 4 hour call. I mean, legitimately, we're not going to. We could unpack all this. So my goal here is to hit a few of those segments, kind of this, at a high level, the conscious agreements, the optimization, and the co-regulation, and then have you guys come in and ask specific questions that that you guys want to hit, right, with all of these things. So I want you guys to understand that. But I take a look at what you said from the parenting standpoint too, and the physiology of things. And when you're really paying, attention, my wife and I were talking about the other day, like, because you're paying attention to one of our kids and this physiological tell, that she has when she's feeling a certain way. We all have that. We all have that. And that's so interesting, how you do a great job of bridging psychology and physiology, which is not something that a lot of relationship coaches do, but it's something we very much talk about, here. So why for you, how did that become like where body optimization became part of the relationship work?
Yeah, so I can't help but thinking systemically because I just love learning new things. Every time I learn something new, it's like how does that add into my larger map of reality in my work? But so the second pillar has four different pieces to it. The one piece is healing wounds. Like we have wounds that not allow us, cause us to be reactive in certain situations. My goal for clients to be responsive, not reactive, be more free. So how do you heal the wounds? It could be some kind of trauma. It doesn't have to be necessarily sexual abuse or physical abuse or emotional abuse writ large, but there's different things that happen in childhood that teach us certain ways of showing up in the world. You know, so we work through those kind of things. A second piece is self-regulation. How do you regulate your nervous system? So, as you're working through your wounds, you're healing yourself, but you're in a conversation with your spouse, he or she says and does whatever they do. And I get reactive. I'm working on it, but I get reactive anyways. All right, what can I do in that very moment to calm my nervous system down? So I don't have to defend myself. I can operate with an open heart. I still have boundaries, but I can operate in a loving, caring way. And the way I talk about that is you go from me to we. You don't give up the me, you don't give up yourself, but the framework is like we. How do we solve this issue? Instead of it's me against you, I'm right, I have to prove you wrong. We have this back and forth type of thing. That's less interesting over time. It kind of gets really boring. And most couples come to me like, we're so sick of that game, tick for tack, type of thing. So how do you regulate your nervous system in the moment? There's breathing techniques, there's mantras one can use, there's movement practices that I teach. There's lots of things you can do in the moment to calm your nervous system down. And you calm your nervous system down, you have more access to the prefrontal cortex, you can make better decisions, you don't say dumb shit. It's a good thing to calm the system down in the middle of a conflict. The third piece is what I call evolution of consciousness. And there are 21 lines of development, either moral, emotional, cognitive, psychosexual. There's all these different lines of development. And you can kind of get a sense where people are in their development in any one of these lines. And it's developmental. So you know what the next stage will be. Now, everyone's unique in how it expresses. But like if I'm working with someone, I say, oh, I can see where they are emotionally in terms of their emotional maturity. I'd have a general sense of what's next for them in terms of their cognitive complexity. I would have a general sense what's next to them. So how do I help them evolve up the ladder of development in particular lines? And the fourth one is the one like I said, deals like I think this is probably the most unique one is how do you optimize a human system? And I have a lot of people go, well, who cares? We're doing couples work. All right. So if you're not eating well, you're not
Mm.
sleeping well, you're not moving, exercise, using circadian biology as a model within 24-hour day-night cycles, you're not dealing with your stress well. Basically, if you feel like shit all the time, it's really hard to show up a loving, caring, compassionate way with your partner. So a piece of what I do with my couples is like, how do we help optimize? Not only do we heal, regulate the nervous system, evolve consciousness, but how we optimize the physical system through various things we can talk about. So they can show up more vitalized, more energized, more happy, healthy. It makes coupledom so much so much nicer when you feel good versus when you feel like crap.
100%. So, he's been very open about it. So I'm going to be very open about it on here too. So Coach Witt's husband, Coach Kev, who we all know and love, had the nerve to have a heart attack, a year ago. And I told him, I'm like, look, I don't care if you die because you're stupid. That's on you. But your commitment to wit, your commitment to your kids, that those relationships, like that's, if nothing else, the health matters. And what you said right there, that physical part of you, like you showing up as the best version of you for them, that physical part matters. You don't show up as the husband or the wife for that you could be if you're not seeking to try to optimize. Perfect's not possible, but my gosh, don't use that as an excuse not to try to optimize. And I think it matters. And people always, better communication, is it somewhat about words? You bet. But hey, it's also blood sugar, it's also sleep, it's also that not sexy stuff, right? What do you find when, because this is, and again, I'm not going to say, it's Coach Witt and Coach Kevin, I'm going to say every relationship has this, but what about when one person is optimizing on health and the other is resisting? Like, how do you get one to lead without nagging? Because that's got to come up working with couples.
Yeah. So first of all, I hope your husband's okay.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
is. He's doing great. And I only say, and I love him dearly. I've been talking to him all day, and I only say this because I say all of this directly to his face,
Okay.
and everybody here knows it. So,
All right, good, good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take it from how do you take it from okay, it's easy for my skinny little wife to tell me how to do something narrative. So it's not it came from a resentment side of things, and now it's just a loving side of things, and now it's just like, okay, I'm not going to say anything at all because it's got to come from you and not from me.
Mm.
Well, yeah. So like, I don't want to get into your personal life and stuff like that. So I'll just say
Oh, we do. We do, Mikey. We do.
very abstractly, not specific to you, Coach, but so because I do find this a lot. Like I find a lot of couples, one is more into like personal growth and development, health and wellness and performance than the other person is, and it's really interesting because it's a sub-selected group of people I work with. Women seem to be more on the personal development path, and men seem to be more on the health optimization or physical fitness path. And when I say health optimization, I don't necessarily mean the whole human system, more like physical training,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But everyone's different, everyone's unique. I can't make universals. What I try to do is I try to find the person's why. Why do they want to do what they're doing?
Mm.
Because I can nag you through my why. Here's my philosophy. Here's my ethos. Here's my set of principles. Here's my values, and you should do exactly what I do because they're right. And they might be for you, but not necessarily for the other person. So if I can get an understanding of like the other person's values, their ethos, what guides them, their why, what's of importance to them, I can use that information to help encourage them to change certain aspects of their life. Because I've had clients who said, "Yeah, I want to be around for my grandkids."
Mm.
Like, and look at what I heard you say is like they're less interested in their wife nagging them about eating properly and exercising, and they just stop listening. But once I get, oh, they want to be there for their grandkids, what might that look like? What might you have to do to ensure you're capable of playing with them the way you want to play with them? And we kind of go down that whole path, and like that opens up a whole new vista for them. You
Yeah.
know, a prophet's never heard in their own home, Coach Whitney. But I'm sure we've all had this experience. You've been telling your partner X, Y, and Z forever, and they go out with their friends, and their friend says X, Y, and Z, and they come home like, "Oh my God, did you know X, Y, and Z?" Dude, I've been telling you that for like years. That's like, which is the funniest thing. But like I said, I want to get people inspired by what inspires them, not by necessarily having the other person who might be right, completely right, nag them into certain behaviors because that's not lasting necessarily. That's not sustainable.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's got to be that why, got to be the invite. And again, I give Coach Kev a hard time just because I love him so much and because
Oh,
I do this to his face all the time.
nice.
But I will tell you, as much as he loves Whitney and Liam and those, that is the why, because he loves, the food and all that kind of stuff, whatever. Like there's a draw, but I mean, those are his whys no matter what. So I mean, that's driving him for sure. The I want to make sure I touch on the co-regulation piece too. So again, guys, I'm kind of going all three of these pillars kind of high level so that you guys can start getting some questions. So as you all start getting questions and thinking of those, you guys can start putting your hands up at any time just so we know that we've got some in there. But I want to hit these high level, so we've got couples here, some that are on here live as a couple, and we got
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I
right,
like it.
which is awesome, man. And you got men and women here. Everybody understands all of the cliches that are true. Life hits you hard. Yes, jobs hard, kids hard, finances hard. You bet. All those things can happen. Michael, you talk about co-regulation, right? And so like learning to help in that helping your partner's nervous system calm down too, right? What does that look like in real time?
Yeah, so I would say the cognitive frame first is from me to we. And I just want to reiterate, it's not about giving oneself up. A
Yep.
lot of people assume like, oh, I have to give up all my needs and wants and desires for this other person. And actually, I work a lot with people individually within the coupledom. What are your actual needs, wants, and desires? Learn what they are and express them and ask them to be met. You're not going to be met all the time, but 80-20 rule is kind of nice. But I find, well, actually, a lot of people don't even know necessarily what their needs, wants, and desires are, let alone how to express them in a healthy way and
Mhm.
ask them to be met. Okay, all right. But so from me to we. So me is not getting rid of oneself, it's still having a strong self, even a stronger self, actually. But the framework is we. How do we come together facing the challenge? And it can't just be a cognitive thing because then it'd be really easy. Oh, we just think that way. But then our physiology gets in the way and we do a whole reactive thing and have to prove her wrong and I'm right and all that, the tit for tat stuff. So the co-regulation piece first is a mental framework. And the second thing is what can we do on a daily basis to support each other's basically nervous system so we can show up the way we want to show up in the world, including the healing, the self-regulation, the evolution of consciousness, and the human optimization, the optimization of the physical system. Part of the co-regulation, and I think Brene Brown talked about this, like, no one comes home 100%. One of the couple members of the couple they might have 20% left of energy and they're in a really tough place and they're stressed out and all the stuff that's going on in their lives. And so maybe the other person's at an 80%. So the person who's a higher degree of energy might want to ask themselves, what can I do to assist my partner? The love of my life, this person who means the world to me. I want to support him or her through whatever they're going on in that particular day or that particular week or whatever the time of their life is. What's interesting about that, it requires constant conversations because you
Mhm.
actually have to be continually ask the person, you know, and they have to be open and honest. What's going on for you and what do you need from me at this very moment? Because what they need from you right now might be different than 5 minutes from now, might be different than 5 days from now. You don't want to turn your partner into a rock. You want to be open and flexible with them because what they might need from you might change over time. And the time could be every 5 minutes. It's not just over weeks and months and years. So it requires you to actively listen, deeply listen to your partner, what they're both saying and what you imagine them to mean. And then you can clarify, is there a congruence between what they're saying, what they actually mean? Because that's not always the case.
Right.
Because a lot of people have a difficulty actually saying what they mean, because it comes out sideways and stuff. But like one co-regulation practice that I have all my clients do actually at the very beginning of every session, and I love this one. I learned this from my mentor, Dr. Stuart Savatsky. He's a scholar of Kundalini Yoga, the original Kundalini Yoga from India. Is you look at your partner, eye contact. Eye contact is huge. And with permission, you put your hand on their heart and they put their hand on your heart. So you're literally feeling into the energetic of their heart. And you're looking into their eyes, into their soul, because that's what they say poetically. You look into their soul and you breathe together. You get into a rhythmic breathing. And you literally just do that for 2 to 3 to 4 minutes. And If either one of them or even both of you are stressed out, the systems begin to calm down because as you're cycling your breath and they get more relaxed and more harmonious. The eye contact, because you just see the person who's the love of your life and you just feel connected to that person. You can feel their heart beating for you, and it's just a really loving place. And I've seen couples like a couple things will happen, and I don't want to make universal statements because everyone's different, but I've seen a couple just cry because they finally relax into the partnership for the first time in hours, days, weeks, because they've been so harried running around doing this stuff, and they just get to spend some time with their partner, the person they've agreed to spend the rest of their life with, to some degree or
Mhm.
another. And feelings just come up and they just remember all kinds of stuff and gratitude and appreciation and funny memories. Like I will tell my couples, hey, this is a family show. Like, like I don't want the triple X stuff coming up. Don't talk about that stuff in front of me. But like they'll remember the funniest sexual things that occurred with each other or funny moments with the family. And on occasion, things will arise during this co-regulation practice that are not easy.
Mhm.
But because they're so co-regulated and relaxed together, they're then able to talk about them more honestly and openly without being defended. So it's not all like love and light, which is nice too, but it could be like, the memories start coming up of something that occurred yesterday or a week before, or a couple months ago, or a series of events that you really want to process with your partner. But now you're in a head heart space to do so.
Mhm.
So, we do this every the beginning of every session, but I always tell my couples if you're going to have a crucial conversation, do this first. Don't be rushing in from whatever's going on in your life and try to have a really serious, deep conversation. Co-regulate, relax the nervous system, get reconnected, have that conversation. And in the middle of it, if you're feeling like, ooh, this isn't going so well, you can make an agreement. Maybe the agreement is you take some time apart. I don't mean like hours and months and years, but like, you go into separate rooms, you do some self-regulatory practices. Maybe you do this co-regulation practice again, but that's the agreements. That's where the agreements come in. And let me make a statement on that. That's really important. How you do arguments, how you do conflict is really important. I've had couples who I can remember just recently, husbands like when we get into conflict and it's not going very well and it's kind of going down the shitter, he said, I'd walk out of the room because I don't want to say or do something really stupid. So in his mind, he's trying to save the marriage by not saying something really stupid when he gets upset. She has abandonment issues, not to get into her past, but when he walks out of the room, she feels abandoned. He's walking out of the room to save the relationship. She's feeling abandoned by him walking out of the room. It makes it even 1,000 times worse, whatever the conflict is about. So they eventually got to an agreement. I will walk out of the room, not because I'm leaving you, but I need to kind of regulate myself. And then I'm going to come back in and we're going to continue this conversation. At least she understands why he is doing that. She still has the wound of abandonment, so she still might get triggered, but at least cognitively she gets it. Then I can work with her on her wounding, which I have been doing. So she's less activated by him walking out because she doesn't feel abandoned as much, less and less and less each time he does it. And eventually, because he's learned to heal himself, she's learned to heal herself, he's learned to regulate, she's learned to regulate. He doesn't have to leave the room. Like they're able to walk through the process and work through the conflict really easily. Also using the co-regulative practice to start the conversation.
It's really good.
I like you're saying like making the agreements. I think it's okay, this argument didn't work, so we need to kind of dissect that when we're not obviously in the heat of the moment because
Yeah, yeah,
for me in my relationship, it's really easy for me to just say, I'm fine. Like in a moment of like he's walking in trying to have a conversation and I'm not really fine and he knows I'm not fine, but that's like my go-to because it's like, nope, I don't want to talk about this right now. It's not the time. And it's interesting to have those agreements and we're, 17 years into a relationship now. So it's like I don't know how I'm feeling right now, but it's not fine, but I can't talk right now.
Mhm.
But that took us several years to get there. And so how do you, because I love this idea of connecting before having a serious conversation, how can you in a moment when you know there's like some hostility going on and the kids are circling and dinner's being made that we can quickly kind of get into a mindset like that um, when we don't have 3 or 4 minutes to gaze into one another's eyes.
I love that. That's a great question. And it's like most people's lives.
Yes.
So that's kind of perfect.
Real life.
Yeah, for sure. So I always tell my couples to come up with a fun word or phrase or activity, like a physical activity that can break the spell.
Mm.
Now you gotta do it really early on, because if you do it midway through, it's probably going to piss the other person off. It's not going to break any spells. But if you can do it early on, so it could be like something, a saying that's meaningful to you, or a phrase that's meaningful to you. I think it's kind of funny, it lightens the mood, that kind of thing. That can be really helpful. And this is the R-rated version, so there's no kids in the room. But like, I'll have one of my couples, the guy will flash her, drop his drawers and like moon her, and she'll flash him, and that just gets everyone laughing, and they're like, "This is so silly. We're fighting about this." They just laugh, and then they relax, because when you start laughing, it changes the physiology and changes your brain, and you can be more, coherent and engage in a conversation. So I wouldn't do that in the middle of a fight. Like if you're a woman, you flash your guy, that might, I mean, actually that might work. But like,
Hey.
I mean, it might.
I don't know. I don't want to speak for all the men and women or whatever the version of coupledom it is. But like, some of these things are best done really early, really, really early. Like whatever the phrase or funny thing you might say or do.
That's awesome, man. Show us an example. I'm not sure what you mean on the flashing. Show us an example. I'm just not that kind of show.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this is all, it's all so good. It's so interesting, man, too, because I think about how like we get this with our kids a lot too, where it's like, okay, babies are crying, whatever, we hold them close and we're like, breathing through. And I remember my kids when they're being little and they're hurt, I'm like, hey, come on, like breathe, relax, breathe with me here, feel daddy's chest, breathe, and we'll breathe together, right? So like we'll do all these things. We understand that there is this ability that we have. And then for some reason, as we get older, we're like, okay, well, now it's weird and we shouldn't do it. And we don't take that time to look. And it's such an interesting thing because we don't do it often. So when you take the time to look into somebody's eyes too, you do inherently, you're like, and it makes you feel, because we're not used to it, but it does break those, it breaks those walls down. There's a reason, like that eye contact is when you don't know if it's a man and you don't know the other man and you get eye to eye and you go face to face, there's an inherent like, okay, are we doing this right now too? Like there's these primal things that come out, right? And so when it is that person and you man, it does shift everything. I love
And
it.
it could be as simple as, and I'm thinking of a couple that I work with right now, literally yesterday. No, 2 days ago. One of her complaints is he's not present during conversations. His back is to her. He's on his phone. He's doing other things. This was her complaint. Now he's present with her. Like he has eye contact. He puts his phone down. This is the agreements that they've had. Like when they're going to talk about stuff, he's not going to be preoccupied with other things. He's going to have eye contact, do active listening. But and I can walk through the active listening in a moment, but just the eye contact, as you just pointed out, makes her feel safe and connected and seen and heard. Like he doesn't have to say much after that. Just paying attention to her visually makes her just feel really comfortable and dissipates a lot of the conflicts.
Willow, let's get you in here, my friend.
Oh. So I'm sorry, it's a little dark in my room here, but so I'm going to ask a little bit on the individualistic side. So as you're talking about co-regulating and you're talking about the relationships, I'm curious of your perspective on how to navigate the new relationship that we have with ourselves as we begin to change the seasons of lives that we have. Like I am in the season, right? Perimenopause, menopause season of my life, and even just from like when you're having littles to like, bigger kids, things of that nature, and the dynamic of who we are, how we're physically changing, and the relationships, like what's your kind of perspective on navigating that so that we can kind of have the best, or make new agreements with ourselves, or, like that kind of perspective, if that makes sense.
I love that. So if you're okay with that, I'll break it into two. One, perimenopausal female, and the other is a parent, and the kids are at different stages of their development. So on the human optimization piece, I always encourage my clients, especially older clients, to get blood work, comprehensive blood panel with their functional medicine doctor, precision-based medical doctor, because from what I've seen, the age, whenever perimenopausal symptoms occur, divorce rates increase. Because the woman's hormones are shifting. She doesn't necessarily know what's going on. I mean, she knows what's going on, but she doesn't necessarily know what's going on. And the man has no idea in most cases what's going on, and it just increases the possibilities of conflict. So just getting the blood work done and making sure your hormones are stabilized from a medical doctor. I'm not a medical doctor, but I find that to be really, really important. But that requires a lot of self-awareness. Like one needs to know, like, this is how it was, and things are shifting. And maybe my mood is shifting. I'm a little bit less, lubricated vaginally when we're having intercourse, or other things like those kind of things occur. My skin's getting drier, my hair is getting thinner, all the things that can occur requires awareness. But the whole process requires awareness, not just premenopausal women. All human beings require, I mean, they don't require them. You can be unconscious your whole life if you want to. But all the stuff that I'm talking about does require a deepening awareness, what's happening to one physiologically and psychologically. And I'll go to like the childhood thing, or your children's changes, different stages of development. When I work with couples and they have kids who are like teenagers and they're about to head off to college, a lot of divorces also happen around that time because the kids go off to college and the parents are like, we've been facing the kids for 18, 17, 18, 19 years, and we face each other and we don't know who the hell the other person is. We know them as a role they played, parent to the kids, but we kind of lost like the partnership. So what I will say, and this is where the agreements come in. I have a whole process called rules, roles, and identities. And you kind of spoke to the identity piece, which I'll speak to as well in greater depth. But like, I will encourage them to start thinking about their relationship, what it will be like once the kids are gone, before the kids leave, because they need to have new rules of how they engage each other. Their roles are changing, both in terms of being a parent, but also being, a married couple, and their identities are changing. Like, and not to be sexist, but like a lot of women that I've worked with, so it's not all women, but like when their kids go away, they're no longer, they're not that they're not mothers, they're always going to be mothers, but that mothering thing that they do on a daily basis is no longer there. That's an identity that they lose. And that's really hard for at least a lot of the women I've worked with. So if you can work with them early on through different seasons, as you say, of life before the season occurs, so they can become conscious of it and do whatever they need to do to adjust the rules that guide the relationship, the roles that they play, and the identities they carry around inside themselves, which will shift over time if you do it consciously in a healthy way.
Mm.
It's Willow. Willow, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. It gives me a lot of food for thought, just in the basics of it too. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
And Willow, you're only in your 20s, so I don't think what you're talking about is as it is, but
Nice.
just it's a good preparation, So speaking of in their 20s and not getting a haircut today, that's all right. The Hughes crew. I mean, last time, okay, yeah, you look good. Still looks good.
How's that? I just cut it all off. That she doesn't like when I do it, and when she does it, I guess I should say. But it feels nice.
Yeah.
I think you look great.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you, Matt and Michael. Thank you for your time tonight, man. This is awesome.
Oh, good.
The question I had was well, just to kind of paint the picture. Our family, we spend a ton of time together, and it's amazing. And something that I've been kind of talking to Corinne about is self-regulation time, and essentially kind of like individual time alone to self-regulate, to kind of get your thoughts together and figure out what you want to do with the rest of the day, and being more proactive. So obviously at Apogee, we're very proactive with a lot of things we do and intentionally scheduling time to do things. So I'm curious your thoughts on how the self-regulation piece and being more proactive about that, how that works with the co-regulation piece.
Yeah, I think both go hand in hand really nicely together. Because ultimately we're sovereign individuals and we're responsible for our own experience and how we express ourselves. So the co-regulation is fantastic for creating from me to we and building the kind of the relationship dynamic. but ultimately you're an individual person. So the learning to self-regulate is key too. And there are disciplines, like, I always encourage all my clients, whether they're individuals or couples, like also co-lead a men's group, there are practices I encourage everyone to do on a regular basis, because if we don't have disciplines, then we're kind of the world is causing us to do certain things. Like we're not at cause of our own life. And ultimately we are a cause of our own life, but we walk around reactive to the world, reactive to our own inner states. Like, and I'll joke with my men. I'm like, I always want people to feel their feelings. Like, I'm not one to be like, stoic, you shouldn't feel your feelings. It's really important, because if you don't, they come out sideways, or they come out as chronic illnesses somewhere down the road. It's important to feel them. But well, I'll say to my men, but you're not three. You don't have to act them out.
Right.
And most people have not been taught to learn to manage their emotional and mental states. So self-regulation and daily disciplines are great tools to learn how to manage one's monkey mind, as they say in the Buddhism, or all the emotional things that go on in the body. So self-regulation as a daily practice, I think, is really important. But I would hear what you said, break into two different things. Yes, like your time to do all that stuff is important. But I think I heard you say, correct me if I'm wrong, that like you also just like your own time to figure out what your plans are for the day, different than regulating yourself for the day. Is that accurate?
Yeah, plans for the day is probably not the best way to word it, but where, kind of level out and where I'm at today and moving forward and figuring out what's next. Not necessarily just today, but
Okay.
time away from the kids, away from the family to self-regulate. For me, like I just went on a hike last weekend and it was like the best 4 hours for me, not for we, but it ends up being good for we. I think I come home refreshed and more able to pour into the family. That's the kind of the thought process.
Yeah, I love that. And that kind of goes back to the agreements, because it's important for each person to really know the other person as best as they can. And agreements is one way to kind of get that. So, I'm not going to coach you on this call, but if I was coaching you and you shared with me, I really want to be able to go do my 4 hour ruck or hike, but I don't know how to ask my wife. Not that you have to ask your wife, you're a free human being, but like, kind of similarly get permission to leave the family to do your thing for a certain period of time without causing a headache, because that can cause a headache for some couples. Like, how do you do that? That's an agreement. Like, how do you share with her what you need, want, and desire? And how do you ask for it in a strange way? Because like I said, you're an adult. You can do really whatever you want to do. But like, get an agreement that this is okay within the family dynamic, that you go do these things. But you have to be clear on what the thing is you want to do, and how do you ask her or tell her. I mean, it's a fine line. Ask, tell her. We can get into
That's exactly how the conversation was. It was like an ask tell.
Yeah.
I just kick them out.
She's probably like, can you go for 5 hours?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the whole day.
I'm going on a hike. Is that okay? Is that okay?
But
Yeah.
I remember a couple I worked with a week ago, and she processes things really fast, like boom, 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 like really fast. He's a slow processor. And for longest time, she got really annoyed by his slowness. Oh, he's not interested. He doesn't really care, blah, 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 blah. And when she started realizing that he just processes information differently, she's like, oh, it's not that he doesn't care. He just processes information differently. That whole segment of conflict kind of disappeared. And she now understands that he needs time to sit and think through these things so you can get clarity in his mind, so they can come back and have a conversation with her. It's not that he's not caring. He actually is caring. He just needs to, he processes at a different speed. Like, so when you guys get to know each other, like she might realize like, wow, it's really good that you go for your 4 hour ruck or your hike. That's awesome. And you can also support her in what she might need individually outside of the context of your relationship and the family life. That's really important. But that takes really good conversations to occur. Both of you have to be, going back to what Willa said, you have to be aware of what you need, want, desire. You need to express it in a healthy, useful way, and then have a conversation around it. That's awesome. So if that's what you need to do, great. And find out what she might need in a similar way. It might express itself differently. Maybe she wants to do something different than hiking. Like maybe she wants some of her own, I don't know. I'm speaking for your wife, but her own time to do her own thing too.
Yeah, for
What
sure.
that look like for her.
I think it's that willingness to want to have that conversation of, hey, because I think a lot of times we see our partner and we see, like Chris can probably say, okay, Corinne needs this. I see she's most happy when she does this particular thing, but she won't give herself the permission to do that. But he's like, okay, she's so much happier when she does this. And I think there's this willingness to have that conversation to say, even from her point of view, I saw the kind of man you came back after this 4 mile hike. Let's schedule that again. And it's not a permission type thing. It's just,
Yeah.
here's what works for our family. So I think it's a willingness.
Yeah.
Actually,
And we have a really, we have a great relationship, but for years we don't have, it's just, especially really after having kids, it's just lock into being parents, and we don't have those conversations until the past few months we have been, and it's a new territory for us, which is really cool to kind of like, maybe for years having want to have done and said things, but just being too afraid to create an issue. And now it's invigorate every time you do it. It becomes much easier, which is awesome.
nice. And I'll speak to real quickly the things you can't talk about. Things that you say you don't want to bring up because it can lead to a conflict. That is a really good indication of going back to the agreements, of areas to excavate, to reimagine what the relationship could be in terms of agreements. Because there are things you can't talk about because it leads to conflict. Those are probably things you should talk
The
about.
most important for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. But it takes, how do you navigate those? Like, you got to figure out ways of actually creating a safe space so you can talk about the things you're not, feel free to talk about.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's a good question, guys. Dig it. Mr. Mraz, speaking of processing slower. Not at all. I say that because he's smarter than I am. So I'm just throwing that out there right now. That's
because you didn't know me, Matt.
I can even joke about it.
So thanks for being here, Michael. Kind of to shift a little more to the optimization side.
Yeah.
Have any tips that you like the most for sleep optimization? And kind of to paint the picture here, I've got a 1-year-old that for the last couple of weeks loves to wake up at midnight and 4:30 in the morning. She gets back to sleep really quick. 15 minutes of holding her, she's back down. And would the advice be different for guy and girl? For sleep optimization in that kind of situation.
Wow, so it's really interesting because most of my clients don't have little babies, so it's easier to have conversations about sleep hygiene, like the blackout blinds and the glasses and binaural beats and same bedtime every time, all that stuff. I still would recommend, like, there's basic things everyone can do. Is your wife breastfeeding?
Not anymore, no.
Okay, so you're not feeding is it your son or daughter?
Daughter. So she's had a stuffy nose, so just midnight, wakes up, cries, you hold her 15 minutes, she calms down, put her back down, she sleeps till 4:30, back up again at 4:30, crying, hold her 15 minutes, put her back down, she's out till 8.
Now, with your all schedule, can you guys switch nights where one person gets up and does one night and the other person does another night? Is that, I don't know what you do for a living or what your wife does for a living.
Yeah, we alternate right now, like one person has the early shift and the other one has the late shift. And when it's after you take your shift, you put in earplugs.
Oh, nice. Okay.
We can get like a 6-hour straight in there, and then it gets interrupted somewhere. But that's the closest we've come so far for it.
Do you track, like, with an Oura Ring or Ultra Ring or a Garmin watch, or do you track your sleep at all?
We've got a 8 sleep bed, so it throws it in there.
So I'd be really curious for you, like, how does that pattern affect your deep sleep, your REM, your sleep latency, your total time in bed, sleeping?
Yeah, I feel terrible and have way less deep sleep if I have that midnight one. If I'm woken up in that first couple of hours of sleep, crushes my deep sleep, and I do not feel good in the morning. And same with her. Whoever has that early one, if they have to wake up for that early one in the middle of their deep sleep, kind of crushes how you feel in the morning.
Yeah. So do you guys switch though? Like, you have the first midnight, she has the next midnight, and you have the next.
Yep.
So, like, every night you're not screwed with the midnight shift.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So like, I always tell all my couples, there's three things: curiosity, playfulness, and experimentation. And we can get into curiosity and playfulness in a moment. Experimentation. I would, if this someone is working for you, can you experiment on the edges? Is there anything you can try to do slightly differently and track your deep sleep? See if it's not as affected. I mean, you're a parent, you have a young kid, so like, yeah, unless you like,
Seeing if there is some magic pill or
yeah,
something.
yeah, exactly. But on the margins, I would imagine there could be some experimentation you might want to try to do just to see if you can maybe increase your deep sleep by, certain percentages, even when the nights you have to get up at that time.
Yeah.
Now it's a roll of dice and hope she skips yours.
Okay. That's right. That's so hard, man. I have so much PTSD when people start talking about that stuff from the amount of, so we didn't have a full night's sleep for 3.5 years, between the two. Between the two.
Great. Like, this is only a last week and a half thing. Like, she's literally been a 12-hour sleeper since 3 months old. So this is like the first time in 9 months that she's been breaking up her sleep. So I can't complain. But
I feel bad. I feel bad exactly that much now that you said that, Adam. So exactly that much. When I say we did not sleep a full night's sleep for 3.5 years, I mean 3.5 years, no exceptions. So you're fine. No,
I'm 3.5 days here, Matt. 3.5 days. It's rough.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, man. It's a good question. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard no matter what. We all know that that's hard. 100% that's hard. I do feel for you on that. Yeah, man, kind of. Anyways, yeah. It was a good question, man. If we're zooming, because I know we're coming to the hour here too, and we're gonna debrief with these folks a little bit if they want to stay up to be able to do that. And I literally, I could talk. It's never hard talking to you all the time about anything ever, whether it's with people or whether it's just you and me, man. If we were to put a through line through all this, and kind of zoom out and get the agreements and optimization and that co-regulation, what do you, when you just look at your body of work, as somebody who has gotten to help so many human beings, and again, I said this at the beginning and I'll say it now, just one of the best humans I know, what is kind of that through line of the humans you're trying to help people become? Like, how do you summarize that?
Yeah, I love that question, and thank you for your comment, Matt. I'll say playfulness. I kind of mentioned it a few moments ago, playfulness and curiosity. If I can impart anything with all my people I work with, a much more playful attitude to life. Now, I'm not saying like life is all unicorns and love and light. Like life can be fucking hard. Like a lot of like really bad things can happen. But what I find is even when life conditions are really hard and challenging, we have one or two options. We can fall back to our level of training or our capacity or our nervous system regulation or wounds, like a lot of people will regress to what they're used to. Or we can evolve ourselves and evolve ourselves to be much more playful. Let's try new things, like what we're doing. For instance, in relationship, this tit for tat thing, it's getting old. Let's try something different. The way we're dealing with our physical bodies, they're deteriorating. We're not healthy. We're not happy. We're not, we don't have the vitality. And let's be playful. What can we do in a more playful kind of way to improve our physiology? What can we do in a more playful way as a mindset? With our emotions, like I don't want people to repress their emotions because, like I said, they come out sideways or they come out as chronic illnesses down the road. But can we be playful with our emotions? Can we learn to express them in new and unique and fun ways? Back to what Willow was saying earlier with our identities. We walk around, this is who I am. A lot of people walk around, this is who I am. And their partner might say, oh, that's just who or she is. That's self-limiting. Now, a lot of how we operate in the world, maybe we like, cool, let's keep it. But let's add a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of playfulness. Let's try some new things out. You can teach old dogs new tricks. It'll make you happier as a human being because life becomes much more interesting. And it'll make you happier as a couple because then you can start playing around and trying new things out and not having to fall back to your old patterns of how you've always done the relationship.
Amen. Amen. As we say around here, eat the oatmeal, gents, right? Like, man, so good, brother.
Thanks, Matt.
It's always so good. I'm gonna be driving through. Your way here in a few days, but we are literally driving right through. We're driving from North Carolina to Rhode Island, so I don't think I'll be able to see you on on the trip here, man. But at some point, I just want to give you a big old hug.
Yeah, man. Well, actually, tomorrow I'm flying to Austin, so you won't see me anyways.
Yeah.
But
Anyways, yeah, that's
when
right.
you come up, next time you come up north, let me know.
Gotta
Yeah.
continue it. And again, guys, this is somebody that always and forever is very much on the same path as us and helping so many people and just so much intentionality. I think you guys got a bit of that here, and you could see that. Thank you for coming in and hanging, man, and sharing your craft with the men and the women here. And I want to make sure, and I know you're good, we put it out as another episode too. So what can we link in there in terms of like site and resources and all that? Where can we send other people for you?
Yeah, Michael, Michael, the letter D, as in David, but just the letter D, Ostrolenk, OSTROLENK.com is my website. Has all the information. I spend way too much time on Instagram, Ostrolenk. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Michael David Ostrolenk. I'm on LinkedIn, Michael David Ostrolenk too. I post every day on social media, like just my thinking on various subjects. So you can, if you're interested in what I'm saying, you can learn more on those platforms.
Awesome, man. Thank you, brother.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
From the pillars to just having the conversation, agreements, optimization, co-regulation. And we're going to walk through and see if these guys want to just maybe pick one to focus on this week and go forward. Transformation is not just in theory, it's in the reps, and you help people with those reps on a daily basis, man. So again, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for
man.
who you are. Thanks for what you do, man.
Nice to see you, Coach Whitney.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
All right, bud. I'll talk soon. I'll reach out and text you here in a little bit.
Sounds good.